Hello. In this video, I'm going to talk about the Magician, who is card 1 of the Major Arcana. Before I get into the Magician, I would like to talk a little bit about magic and a little bit about the tarot in general. So, sometimes the tarot and magic are looked at as this dark or evil force, and it repels a lot of people. How I understand it is, well, for one, the tarot started out as a card game and sort of turned into this tool for divination. It has these archetypes in it that are universal, that we see in the Greek gods and goddesses, we see it in the Orisha. I think that they are energies that we see in the world that aren't culturally based, although each culture has a different way of either representing or talking about them. The darkness that can be associated with the tarot, I would say, is certainly possible, and it happens when we start getting involved in self-love or pushing our own agenda through this tool, abusing the tool. We see that, however, in every field. We see it in medicine, where medicine has been abused to harm people and to push certain agendas. We see that in politics. We see that in religion, where people use their religious beliefs to push particular agendas. We see it with the media. So it's not particular to the tarot or to magic, this darkness that people can get involved in. And yet the tarot and magic aren't exempt. They're not protected from that darkness. How I understand the tarot is it, like everything in our environment, is a way to represent certain energies, to give us warnings, to give us guidance on this path of life. When we open the Bible and we're struggling with something and we open it right to that perfect passage in the Bible that gives us guidance, or we open a book of Proverbs and the proverb that we happen upon is the perfect message that we needed to hear in that moment. Or we turn on the radio and we hear that song that really helped to lift our spirits out of this really dark place that we were in, or some way of relating to us when we felt really isolated, is really what the tarot is about, how I understand it. It's a way of touching into, okay, this is my environment. What is it that I need to hear? What is the message I need to hear right now? What is the energy around me? What is it that I need to be cultivating at this time? And that's really how I understand it in terms of divination. I think it also has another use like in therapy, I think that it's a wonderful tool, very similar to the Rorschach test, where you can tell a lot about where someone is, some of the things they're struggling with internally. If you look at how they interpret the cards, the things that they see, what they're drawn to, what they're repelled by, which cards they're drawn to, and which cards repel them. And so I think that the tarot can definitely be used clinically as a tool for understanding deeper, understanding a person deeper, understanding their psychological or spiritual states. So, the magician is working with magic. He is working with the element fire, although he works with all the elements. If you'll notice, this is the magician here. And you'll notice that he has all the elements in this card. And so one of the things about the magician is that he is working with the natural world. He's dealing on the human realm and working with the natural physical world. He understands the spiritual through the physical. And so I sometimes think of him as the medicine man or the healer, the doctor, the spiritual guide. He's the one who is relating to the elements and relating to the natural world in order to help heal people and help guide people and understand things better. In its upright position, the magician is related to compassion and understanding. He's related to healing and divination. He's related to working with the natural physical elements of the world and gaining understanding through the physical, tangible world. And the understanding is spiritual understanding. Sometimes it's very natural and physical, but how I understand it is that stuff is a reflection of spiritual states and spiritual understanding. And so he is kind of that, the one who understands and who translates from the spirit into the natural. He understands that translation and how that works. In its neurotic state, he can be pretty dark, and so he can use his wisdom for evil. He can manipulate in order to push his agenda. And so sometimes you'll see loose boundaries. He's, because he represents fire, it's kind of mysterious, but very dangerous if you don't know how to handle it, if you don't respect it. And so in its reversed state, the magician can be very dangerous. It can be, with the loose boundaries, it could, burn down an entire village, or, it could burn itself, or it could, when misused, the power that the magician has can do a great deal of damage. And so a lot of times you'll see that he's associated with like manipulation and sometimes like an abuse of power or an abuse of like spiritual knowledge, seduction, so that he can gain power and then misuse that power. Not respecting the fire element, and so it can sometimes get out of control if he's not being he is sometimes thought of as the first card of the deck and sometimes the second card. Oftentimes the Fool is actually at the end rather than the beginning of the major arcana. And so sometimes number 1 is actually the first card. I think of him often as the second card because I sometimes think about the Fool as this, like as the Fool's journey, or I think of the 0 before the 1, but that I don't think that's necessarily important unless you're dealing with the numerology of it, which I don't get involved in necessarily. But yeah, the Magician, he's working with the natural world and he's understanding the spiritual world through the natural world. And yeah, I guess that's kind of it for him. The next card that I will talk about is the High Priestess, who is card number 2. And I look forward to seeing how the Magician develops, how he grows from here, how he grows both for me as I work with him and as I understand him further, and as well as for all of you. I look forward to seeing how he develops. So thank you for joining me, and I will talk to you again soon.